of the European season, but this year it's round 6 and we've been in Europe for the previous 5. Maximum speed around about 200 miles an hour. It's a high downforce circuit. There's 602 Schumacher brothers and losing out at turn 12 back in the temperatures at the moment 48 degrees. It's blistering hot. Nico Rosberg trying to look cool as he did in 2015 when he won the race here. Hello, how are you?
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm fine.
Great to see you. Jetted in from Ibiza, electronic gubbins in his cockpit.
Yeah, I mean, we have to keep in mind, we've come here 3 months later than we normally come here for the Grand Prix. And the track conditions at the moment, 48 degrees on the surface there. That's going to be tough. That's tough for the tyres. I think, we can see even the soft, Crofty.
Make it even more difficult in terms of tyre management because they're always too close to perfection otherwise because they know they can calculate it too well. And that's what's not great.
And to me, and we're not going to bang on all day about trying to...
They're made, to save weight. They're not necessarily made in the same thickness or stiffness across the whole chassis. There's certain... By August, for sure, they would have had third, fourth, fifth chassis ready to go. It's on where they are on the cycle, whether they would have had a fourth chassis ready to go.
I've heard that they've got 4.
That mental problem that Sebastian Vettel might have, i.e. I'm getting into a car that just doesn't do what I want it to do, can completely disappear, can't it? Is it that easy?
Well, I mean, mentally, it must be very, very tough. And we saw it in Silverstone, how he was starting to question...
Yeah, to effectively fight for that #1 spot.
Not quite the same because for me, actually, I mean, the Sebastian in my situation was Lewis. Because when Lewis came in, I'd only ever won one Formula 1 race. Yeah. So I was like nothing. And Lewis came in as the big world champion.
As much as you have done this year for quite some time. But you're happy with that decision. It was the right decision for you. Is it a good time for him to retire now? Should he just think there's life outside of Formula 1?
I knew you were going to ask me that, Crofty.
And so you prepared an answer.
Come on, and by the way, we've got Twitter right in front of us. We've got Crofty's Twitter right in front of us. Oh, Otmar, Sebastian said you were just taking him to the next fuel station where his car was parked. Which fuel station was that at, please?
Yeah, it was a BP, British Petroleum Station in Brackley.
Did he not have a car pass to come to the circuit?
Well, we'll move on from that then. How much of a boost is it for you this weekend?
And the trouble is the regulations of a transitioning part from non-listed to listed is completely unclear in the rules. And they said yes, many of them, but generally it can take 4 to 6 weeks, and now with the virus also making things more cumbersome with getting the right judges in place at the right time, perhaps that time frame could be up to a couple of months. But who knows? Let's see what happens going forward. We're okay with that. We are running the brake ducts as they are. It's just a matter of getting clarity and clearing our name, and to do so, it looks like we're going to have to appeal.
If it was another team, and I'm not saying for one moment you intended to know, this track, I wouldn't say it's traditionally been your greatest track in the past. How are you set up for this weekend, and what's it been like this morning? Drivers suffering with tyre wear, etc. Tell us a bit about the day so far.
Situation before, but many times, and it's painful. So that's why
it is. I'm understanding what Racing Point's argument is as well, and I also know that if you walk into a sweet...
Fresh eyes, fresh brain, fresh ears on these sort of things. But every time you talk to someone from Racing Point, you believe them. You think they're going to win this. They're absolutely right. Then I go and talk to someone from Renault, and I think, well, actually, they're absolutely right. What they're saying is the circuit gets used for testing and other categories, so it gets cleaned up a bit more than some others. And I think that...
Talking about Sector 3 in 2016, you barely made it to Turn 3 in 2016.
Oh, he was on pole,
Oh, yeah, sorry, you took qualifying.
Qualifying.
Oh, I thought you meant the race, sorry.
Harsh, Crofty, harsh. You should remember that.
He's got on Valtteri Bottas.
Explains that 6/10 delta, doesn't it, between him and Lewis Hamilton. I mean, this is a track where Bottas is quicker. He was on pole here by a big margin. He was fastest in FP1, FP2 last year, from the hard straight to the soft. Now they've split the strategy. I think they're trying to work out what is the offset to then work out what is the safe tyre.
These tyres are just not working at all. Massive slide.
Verstappen goes second fastest with a 1:18.3, 4/10 behind Lewis Hamilton. Up on Max Verstappen. Alex Albon currently 8th fastest, and we can just see him now running a touch wide at turn 9.
About this, I think with Rachel in Silverstone, wasn't he? He made a comment that you know, he could see 14 cars on the grid if this didn't play out the way that he was hoping. So I don't know if it's true or not.
And it's nice to see a team that traditionally hasn't had the investment now actually getting a bit of investment behind it.
Yeah, we don't need to speak about these extreme cases either, because whatever racing
Judgments.
I think as we're speaking about it more and more, I'm almost inclined to speak about it less and just wait for it to play out, because this and then we'll call it when that happens.
One thing I do agree with Mattia,
after the session.
And I am sure he would want to be transparent about all things as well. Yeah.
like that.
Well, that was pretty transparent of them.
And did they offer any explanation as to why that might be? Because it's, you know, a few of us have been scratching our head on that one, and I sound really sarcastic at this moment, and I am. Nico Rosberg, why don't you take us through 2.89 miles of this Barcelona track with steering wheel for a bit of dash?
Pull out the steering wheel, and now here Valtteri, off he goes, flat out through turn 3. That's easy flat. You just need to be careful with the steering wheel to let it. That radio comms must have been before the lap low, because no way would the engineer say that middle of the lap. So now going up here just tiny lift, completely blind on the exit. And you just go by memory, and he just nailed it there. He had a perfect line. Now
look out, look, he's not even got to turn 1 yet, and he's almost taken his foot completely off the gas to tiptoe around again to do another lap.
Okay, so double cool down, track is completely free.
Yeah.
Valtteri Bottas.
that, by the way, will help Valtteri, because last year he was in the middle of a divorce through the season. And this year he seems to have a great relationship with his new girlfriend, and she's joining into all the races, because your private life in the end has a big impact in your performance.
But
just for everybody who's watching, there's a lot of hand gesturing going on here in the background, which you can't see.
That's part of the fun of being in this commentary box. You never quite know where it's going, but at the moment, Karun, we're into turn.
Have less power and everything, so that's also an advantage that they have to make it easier to go flat.
Sure, but I mean, these guys, the speed they're able to carry through turn 9 now, use a lot of that curve on the inside, the sausage curve there, that can destabilize the car and compromise your traction coming out onto the main straight. Sainz comes across the line with an 18.2.
Every team has it also. I mean, you hear from Ferrari that it won't set them back at all, but I don't think that's true. I'm sure they have their quality modes as well.
Yeah, I agree with Nico on that. I think one thing that became apparent, Crofty, just talking to one of the engineers in the paddock, between
my timing screen he had. Right, okay, it's the 1:17.4, apologies.
I mean, including the fuel, it would be about 5.5 tenths, because you've done 2 slow laps, which burns fuel, so you're about...
Just got the feeling that Leclerc was trying to position himself without worrying too much about the Haas, and for a couple of corners, there he was. But that is an excellent lap of a 1:18.1 for Romain Grosjean.
Them doing the outlap now, one more challenge that they have is to make sure that the difference in temperature front to rear tires, the temperatures are not in the right place. It's already too late. It's already too late and you're miles off the track.
It looks like on a cooling lap on board with Lewis Hamilton.
6 tenths the gap between Magnussen and Grosjean. That's massive.
And let's just go back to the...
I checked my tyres in a bit, just went over some stones.
Tyres look okay.
Let's just go back to the Ferrari head-to-head battle.
Thinking that yes, you want to join Ferrari, it's difficult to turn them down, but on track it might have been a better decision to stay put for a season or two.
No, come on, a chance to become a Ferrari driver doesn't come that often. Yeah, I know Ocon very well, and he has huge talent. But yes, a little bit surprised at the difference lately between the two.
4 tenths down on his teammates, rounded up or down on that one. Continue on with Alex Albon. So he's lost time going through turn 6, wasn't it?
Brake too late, ran wide there mid-corner as well, lost another chunk amount of time. Difficult with the traffic, of course, you never know what they're going to do.
Assume maybe something at turn 9, just maybe with the deployment or something.
This is where he lost a chunk of time, as we were riding on board at the time. Next question, is that car performance scores, or is that the way Alex handled the car on that occasion? You just winced, Karun Chan, look at what you were watching.
He used a lot of curve there, didn't he? And then he...
Indian Diesel UK says, why did...
Might have thought that he would be too much of a threat to their now #1 Charles Leclerc, and that they think it's better
to have an offset.
To maybe have a little bit of an offset or something, and they thought maybe Carlos would be a little bit more manageable. Who wrote that? David.
David.
Oh, David. No, thank you very much. I was done with that one. I was happy.
You see, come back to the commentary box and smiling and laughing and joking. You see, none of that stress now trying to go and win world championships.
He even had dessert at lunchtime today.
It was epic.
Yeah. You'd never have. I mean, you used to.
No engine now.
Well, early on in the season, I would have said that McLaren would be challenging for podiums then next year with that Mercedes engine. But now I don't know what's happened. They've kind of dropped back a little bit again. So this was 2012. The indication, the potential was there because he wasn't. You know, the performance just wasn't as good as maybe he was once upon a time. So the potential people watching would quite appreciate that. We just saw Sebastian having a big moment, so a big mistake there over the curve and just taking way too much curve.
We are checking.
Threw him off totally.
Give me a right.
Do stop, that's going to be what everybody favours this weekend. But then we had 1, 2 and 3 last weekend, didn't we? Depending on the team. So at the moment, they're all just going through their run plan.
By the way, huh? Just to let you know.
One of them's won a world championship. Give him credit.
I'm sorry, just after what we were talking about before, that's tickled me, that's what really has. Oh dear. We'll carry on. Kimi Ryan.
Well, have they got a Q1 this year?
No. A lot of it, most of it is down to the engine again, because they're running the Ferrari engine. And just as the Ferrari team has lost a second, they've lost a second to the midfield as well. So that's where it is.
Just engine.
It will be 90% engine, yeah.
I mean, Grosjean, that's just why I'm interested to see Grosjean's pick.
I mean, he's always there with Giovinazzi, and Giovinazzi we know is a great young talent.
37 laps this weekend to break the record for the total distance raced in Formula One, which is 53,099 miles, currently held by Fernando Alonso.
Wow.
And for those of you that like, maybe 6 in the space of that 10 minutes. Not very much.
Yeah, you're right, because he went out the pits at 15:50, I think. So yeah, 10 minutes. So he would have done. But also managing sector 1 to have a bit in the last sector. Lewis talked about that 5-6 seconds difference.
Did you prefer the Pirelli era, or did you prefer the Bridgestones?
No, I mean, well, both has their challenge. Of course, as a driver, you just want to be flat out all the time. But
Final chicane. Carry on, Nico.
So let's go back. So turn 3 is an almost flat out corner, you know, and it's so long. Highest energy. You're going to see him coming up to that soon. You need to save your tires there a lot. Also, the straight afterwards is not quite as long, so you can afford to save more there than in some other
things you don't want to do.
Exactly. But to judge that, how much?
Explain just how you manage things and where you do it around a track like Barcelona.
Too difficult to develop a software which tells you, okay, in that corner you should actually.
And your eyes were watering for the next 10 laps, but which made you go a bit faster sometimes. No, I don't think I'd want the software. I think the driver should be making those decisions.
I can give you one more actually.
This is the world driver
who's been working on the simulator back at Brackley to try and get that feel himself, to try and run it much further forward, because he's seen Lewis do.
They're all on race runs. They're all trying to do the same thing.
Who's impressed you most, mate?
Well, I'm surprised. Grosjean keeps being right up there in the top few. We don't know the fuel loads, but he was at quali, you'd be third row of the grid, and if you had a good quali, you'd be.
It was Michael Schumacher, Nico Rosberg.
Yes.
And he was third. You had to be fourth because you couldn't be second, because in your day you could. Yes, that's true. But
I'm not on the same. I'm not sure about that. I mean, he must be doing a generally good job. I do also. But
we did pick up a McLaren on a run, and I have to say the soft tyres did not look at all happy on.
Okay, how do I engineer us around this one? Where do you start?
Well, there's only 2 sets of hard tyres available anyway on there for the weekend, so they're using one of those up now at their allocation. But it does seem as if you've got to find a way on.
We do see cars going quite wide there. It's like the old.
It's just horrible. You can't get the traction down, sliding all over the place.
I'm amazed how hard they can use that yellow sausage curve on the exit. It's getting quite rubbered in now, but they balance the car beautifully up on the top of that and then floor the throttle.
That's the high jump.
That's the high jump, isn't it? What is it in gymnastics? You don't want to.
That could be. It could be anything from software to. We got these days, I think. New power unit, ICEs, internal combustion engine for Danny used 2 turbochargers. That's the 3rd now in the system, and we're only on race 6.
Yeah, of course. I mean, without knowing exactly how many races are in the championship as well, eking out your Alex.
Do that.
Did you?
I always used to look where the loop was. There was one race.
Wind is picking up.
as we normally expect at this time of day. Like when they
He'll always lose quite a lot as a driver, at least half a second,
Right.
But he will just
280 Ks exiting the pit lane.
that's not
moment. If the hard tyre is lacking in grip.
All right, well, I'll answer very simply. I don't know the answer to that.
what Pirelli said. They expected 2 stops, so let's assume it's going to be soft, medium, medium. They do about 10 laps on the soft. You get a better starter as a result, so maybe that was
less than quarter of a second.
Oh, by the skin
that
of
would
his
have
teeth.
spoiled their weekend if that hadn't quite worked out.
One of them will be right, but of course you are going to upset the other driver if you do that.
Tag und dann ins Wochenende. Ja, Latifi hätte nicht da sein. Ja, aber das Geile ist, dann hat Giovinazzi hat ihn ja auch nicht überholt. Der ist auch hintergeblieben, obwohl blaue Flagge war. Dann bremst der bremst der andere. Ich bremse auch.
สมัครสมาชิกกับเวฟโคปา55วันนี้300 บาทรับเสื้อตราสโมสรฟรีแอดไลน์ได้ที่